In order to liberate all sentient beings, please give rise to the supreme and unsurpassed bodhicitta. Today, we will continue our discussion of the Shurangama Sutra. Before we begin, there is something I would like to mention. This year, before the Amitabha Dhamma assembly, during the retreat, we should recite Amitabha Buddha's name with sincerity. Some time ago, Larungar issued this request, or rather, this is the plan for this year, to recite Amitabha Buddha's name. In Tibetan, 1 million times, or in Chinese, 6 million times. If you haven't recited before, finishing in 15 days is unlikely, but when the retreat comes, it will be needed. The main focus will be on practicing the Pure Land rebirth method. So in every place, every group, and for all Dharma teachers, everyone should be preparing in this regard. You should all be making preparations in advance. Our rebirth in the Pure Land, get fully ready in every aspect, since everyone will eventually leave this human world. When the time comes to leave, I don't know if some people have recited before, while others may not have recited. In the teachings of the precious Dharma King, all those who have karmic connections with him will be reborn in the Pure Land. So for many of us, in this regard, we really should have made some efforts to prepare. I've been thinking, looking at time every year, around that time, I would go out to teach. But this year, I'm uncertain if I don't hurry up and recite. I don't know when I might have to leave. Indeed, I had vowed to recite 1 million times, but I still haven't done it. But I definitely cannot finish it in 15 days. I'm not sure. But should I at least recite a portion, I really wanted to share this with everyone so that you can also be mentally prepared, fully and completely ready in this regard. Retreats. This year, the retreat should focus on practicing the Pure Land rebirth method. In this respect, everyone should also just prepare themselves mentally. Now, let us go ahead and continue with our main topic in our ongoing discussion as we continue the Shurangama Sutra. Shurangama Sutra. It should be said that this Dharma teaching is extraordinary. From a certain perspective, you can see the faith that arises from it, especially for the Chinese Buddhist community indeed, due to historical reasons, and perhaps also because many people choose to study Chan Buddhism. There are many profound and meaningful Dharma teachings contained within it. That's why it is given special importance, truly, in my opinion. Among the sutras discussed, in comparison, everyone probably values the Shurangama Sutra more. We have previously discussed the Heart Sutra, discussed the Diamond Sutra, as well as the Lotus Sutra and the Vimalakirti Sutra, as well as the Amitabha Sutra, and so on. We have discussed many sutras, but among these, the faith in the Shurangama Sutra is especially unique. This really can be seen from many different aspects as well. Generally speaking, when teaching the Shurangama Sutra, there are often many auspicious signs. Not particularly attached to auspicious sign, but indeed, in many respects, things do seem to go quite well, including today as we are discussing the main theme of the Shurangama Sutra. This might just be a coincidence, or perhaps there truly is such an auspicious cause and condition. Today is September 9, 2019. So here we have 3 nines. 3 nines make 999, symbolizing longevity. I've seen patterns previously on September 9th, 1999. I had observed that there were 5 nines. I went to Thailand. At that time in my Thailand travel notes, I also I wrote down and described some interesting stories from that day. It's been exactly 20 years in total, from 1999 to now, as of today. Indeed, those 5 9s at the time, for me, it was in China or abroad things. We didn't have anything else, no business expansion or trade ventures. When it came to teaching the Dharma, things went smoothly. Those 5 9s in the past. So today, as our Shurangama Sutra formally enters the main topic, it's also a rather special day with 3 9s. Perhaps it's just attachment, or maybe there really is such an auspicious cause and condition. In the past, Elder Master Shuyun, when he lectured on the Shurangama Sutra, also said that a huge Udumbara flower suddenly appeared in front of him. It was especially magnificent, and many of the petals were particularly large, and they would not wither for a long time. So, among Elder Master Shriyun's many notable writings, there are not that many. The only commentary he wrote was on the Shurangama Sutra. He also said that if we carefully read the Buddhist canon, reading Tripitaka for 3 years, of course, there is merit in that, planting the seeds of Buddhahood and wholesome roots, the seeds of goodness. But if we skim through superficially, it doesn't have significance. One must be able to recite word by word and read with focus and dedication for it to be meaningful. But if you don't have that much time and you devote to reading only the Shurangama Sutra, the merit from this is extremely great. Moreover, focusing on reading the sutra text is enough. No need to read commentaries. The significant and valuable benefits obtained from this are truly tremendous. He probably mentioned this in his chronicle, of course, as one might reasonably expect. In the past, some scholars from Peking University have said that the Chronicle of Master Shuyun was compiled by later generations. These accounts are not accurate, including the truly remarkable claim that he lived for 120 years is also not necessarily accurate. Some scholars have said this as well. But later on, there were also some scholars who indeed, based on Master Shuyun's teachings, entire life from birth to his final passing, found some very solid evidence, actually. For example, when Master Shuyun first began his journey, before he had even left home to become a monk, because of pressure from his family, he did, at least outwardly, just get married. This can be shown by the letters from his wife, which also completely confirm his earlier age. His early years are vague. Later on in the past, Elder Master Ben Huan, he was also mainly involved at that time. And after participating, Elder Master Ben Huan, who truly should have been his master, produced a film called 100 Years of Shuyun. I haven't actually watched all of 100 Years of Shuyun myself, not yet anyway. I haven't actually seen the whole thing, but I have skimmed through it briefly. Actually, many things in it show that indeed, since he was young, his renunciation, his virtuous root seeds compared to other children were completely different. The entire process of his gradual growth is described very well. I think it was 20 episodes. I see that some of our young people spend all day watching all sorts of random popular movies and TV series. Whatever you like to watch, you become that kind of person. If you really must let your mind wander, then watch biographies of great masters and predecessors. That might be just a bit better, because truly a lot of our faith is actually shaped by a person's values. Whatever someone enjoys to watch, that's the kind of person they become. So I think for us, at this particular moment, like Elder Master Shuyun, I remember in that narration, apparently he was born around 1840, and the story is told up to when he was 120 years old. His entire life is described very, very clearly. So nowadays, in some academic circles, no matter which field it is, he sometimes gives a similar reason and then introduce a different kind of thinking to the public. Another idea at this time, people who lack discernment are swayed. Just follow others. A few days ago, we studied principles of the Shurangama Sutra and shared them with everyone. If we hadn't done that, many people would wonder whether it's a genuine sutra or a fake sutra. They wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So in the minds of many people, they might still harbor some doubts. They themselves don't have the ability to clarify, nor do they have the ability to thoroughly understand the meaning within. So they just go along with what others say. Some people may even continue to slander it. If that's the case, it's truly very frightening. I also mentioned the other day, if someone slanders the true Dharma and writes a treatise on it, the offense is even more serious and graver than building a slaughterhouse. If someone builds a slaughterhouse, they may kill many sentient beings, destroying their physical bodies in this one lifetime. But if we create a fallacious theory in our minds, then it should be said that over time it becomes a lasting stain, destroying the wisdom life of being. This is an issue that carries life after life. Just as it is said in the Pratimoksha precepts, if a poisonous snake destroys your body, it only harms this present life. But if you break the precepts and destroy wisdom, then it is the wisdom body and Dharma body that are destroyed life after life. It's just like that. So when we compose our treatises, I hope that in our brief lives we do not, for ourselves or for our future lives, leave behind extremely unbearable, painful causes and conditions. Some sentient beings follow certain evil teachers like Devadatta, and they themselves lack discriminating wisdom, then begin to compose treatises, establish doctrines, or write books, and so on. Afterward, it may be hard to purify. In such cases, even some great masters outwardly also have such instances. We have cited this before. In the later years of Master Hongyi, some of his views and opinions. So the first step for us is to recognize, on one hand, the merits of the Shurangama Sutra. At the same time, when it is necessary, misunderstandings or views on Buddhism necessary for Buddhists to clarify them as well. This time we should address the many doubts and suspicions left by history, doubt or suspicion or different viewpoints, and provide further explanations. In previous class, we gave explanations. So next, when it becomes necessary, we will go even further in more detail, together with everyone, why these different viewpoints arise, main reasons for this, whether it's the historical background of that time or the reasons related to certain individuals. Even now in Tibetan regions, it's the same. For example, when a geshe or a khenpo goes out, when he goes out to study, learn, if he goes to Buddhist institutes with especially good practice and realization, then when he returns, spreading the true Dharma is very successful. And he becomes a truly rare and valuable talent. If when he goes out, though the Buddhist teachings should be excellent beginning, middle, end, but in some places, in some monastic colleges, they become attached to words debating terminology, while the truly profound meaning they have never actually tasted. If one studies there in such a academic and spiritual monastic college, then they will also be influenced by it. Actually, regardless of which ethnic group, which place or which group it is, so-called teachers are extremely influential when it comes to certain people. Their words are very persuasive and infectious. Whether in positive aspects, some people are charismatic, some have particular influence. Even in negative ways, they can be influential. We know from history, including during World War II, for example, Hitler, every single time he gave a speech, thousands of people were moved. When we watch some of those old German films, indeed, when he spoke live on the scene, his inciting power was particularly strong. When he spoke, wow, so many people had an impression of Nazis or what Jewish people were actually like back then. Through a single speech, he could leave people with a firm impression in their hearts. So when we teach the true Dharma, it's the same. Some are directly planting seeds of positive energy, others plant evil seeds. Harmful content exists. It is possible that this could happen, as there is a chance that it might occur. Therefore, first of all, when it comes to many aspects of the Shurangama Sutra, we do not approach it with attachment, nor we form views on greed or anger, but indeed with objective and fair, impartial approaches, making reason our foundation and establishing the right path based on reason. This point is very important, really. Now, regarding our study of the Shurangama Sutra, if it is convenient for me, if my reference, if memory serves me right, under those circumstances, when I talk about the Shurangama Sutra, I will discuss some of its merits and some related topics, and also share some spiritual experiences of great masters in history. So today, I would like to talk about an example from, I believe, as far as I know, the Tang Dynasty. During the Tang Dynasty, lived the Master Wake. He is tough to write. Take a look when the time comes. According to the biographies of eminent monks of the Song Dynasty, Master Wake, he was a famous master at that time. Once he visited Phang Rong, the prime minister involved in translating the Shurangama Sutra. He went to Phang Rong's home as a guest, or for a meal offering. He really had that certain something. While visiting, Phang Rong took out the 10 volumes of the Shurangama Sutra in total and briefly introduced their topics. His intention was probably to form karmic connections with them, the 10 volumes. Then he slowly handed them over to the 10 monks. He then talked briefly about how he translated the Shurangama Sutra. Some say that at that time, Master Weke received it from Shenshu, but most accounts follow the Song Dynasty biographies of eminent monks. At that time, Master Weke obtained the 4th volume of the Shurangama Sutra. After he finally obtained it, he was extremely delighted. At that time, perhaps layman Phang Rong either sent it to him, details aren't clear, for a karmic tie or other reason, divided Shurangama Sutra to 10 monks. It may not be clear whether it was divided by chapter. Idea was introducing topics. He was forming this kind of karmic bond with them. After forming this connection, Master Wake was very confident at the time. Then he wanted to write a commentary himself. As for writing a commentary, at the time he earnestly prayed to Manjushri Bodhisattva for 10 years. Ancient people were strict. He prayed to Manjushri Bodhisattva for 10 years. After 10 years, during one of his spiritual experiences, during these what we refer to as a pure vision, Manjushri Bodhisattva appeared and then entered into his mouth. After that, he truly gained ability to write insightful commentaries on the Shurangama Sutra. He then wrote a 3-volume commentary on the Shurangama Sutra. After he finished writing, one night in a dream, Manjushri Bodhisattva appeared and then softly left from his mouth. So, in our Tibetan Buddhism, there are categories of pure visions, teachings that arise from pure visions, including works by the Dharma kings, Dharma teachings, vision teaching, and some are treatises or scholarly works. So, in his case, perhaps after Manjushri entered his mouth, written down net present value calculation. Afterwards, throughout the Han region, many great masters, whether from the Song dynasty or Ming dynasty, many great masters based their commentaries on the Shurangama Sutra on Master Wake's annotations as their foundation. Recently mentioned Master Yuanying, who mentioned Master Guanding. Was Guanding Jesus' disciple? But as for Master Jize, it seems that in terms of timing, if he was in fact a disciple of Master Jize, if so, possible discrepancy. Perhaps it was another Master Guanding, because wasn't Master Jize from the Sui dynasty? Before our Shurangama Sutra was translated, story 100 years ago. So in that case, it might be someone else. But even so, these masters, in their own ways as well, relied on Master YK's thoughtful and thorough commentary. So that's one aspect of it. Also, during the Ming Dynasty in particular, there was indeed a distinguished master named Zhenjin who also achieved enlightenment through the Shurangama Sutra, He later had realizations on Shurangama Sutra. Then he became a monk. After becoming a monk, he wanted to write a commentary. As for writing the commentary, it wasn't something he completed in a short period of time. He thoroughly studied it for 10 years. He prayed to Manjushri Bodhisattva. It was only after 10 years that he wrote it. This master, Zhenjiang, indeed studied for 10 years, reading. Later, once when he fell ill, it seems the three Western saints all began to appear. When the three Western saints appeared, he said to Amitabha Buddha, "My vow is not yet fulfilled. I haven't finished writing this commentary yet." Amitabha Buddha asked, "If I could take a leave of absence just for a while?" Amitabha Buddha agreed. After permission, he wrote proper lineage commentary, Shurangama Sutra. This work is also very famous. Later, he completed the proper lineage commentary on the Shurangama Sutra. As for this commentary, although at the time some people did, in fact, openly criticize it, and there were various objections and even some rejection of it, in reality, it is also, in fact, extremely formal and detailed annotations and commentaries. So for us, whether we are, for example, diligently preparing our lecture notes or writing commentaries, many of us nowadays have rather tight schedules. Therefore, when writing books or preparing comprehensive lecture notes in the future, of course, on one hand, there is timeliness. It is necessary to create some references like this. And when you prepare lecture notes as well, I see that many of us truly work very hard with sincere motivation, staying up all night to prepare lecture notes for everyone, and offering helpful reminders and practical convenience to ensure that nothing important is forgotten, making it easier to remember tasks and avoid missing anything essential. This is necessary, but perhaps it should be noted that these are not finalized drafts yet. When it comes to writing the final version, it is best if we allow for some time in between, because when we are in a hurry, nothing we do is particularly not very efficient. So if we truly want to prepare lecture notes, it is a project that will last 1,000 years. Something valuable that can be passed down for generations. In this case, the skill involved in writing, the rigor and meticulousness of the text, this is extremely important, very important, no matter which great master or teacher, if their teachings are passed down from generation to generation, the impact is tremendous, and that's truly wonderful. I have recently been translating a Tibetan compilation they put together a few years ago, which contains the teachings of His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok. There are about 80 chapters in total, but along the way I encountered many different states of mind. Sometimes I feel, wow, this is such a great contribution. I think that so many of the Dharma King's teachings have all been carefully collected right here. Wow, I'm especially grateful to them for having such thoughts. But sometimes I feel quite uncomfortable. The Dharma King didn't say this. They simply wrote down whatever they wanted themselves on their own because, for example, in a chapter title, they didn't know. After saying a few sentences, there was nothing else. I think at that time, Guru Jigme Phuntsok would certainly not have done that. It seems like there's nothing before or after, just a few sentences. So regarding the editorial team, as you may already know, of course, I also don't really know who exactly edited this. It's not exactly clear who did the editing inside that either. Lack of clarity is bad. It would be better to list names in the future. If someone made a contribution, they should be praised. If there was no contribution, it should be pointed out. That would be better. Otherwise, what I translated recently was from 14th Anniversary Parinirvana 2 years ago. It was released at that time, and in it, sometimes I feel it's really good. I'm grateful. Other times it's bad, and I wonder who did this. When I flip through, but there are no names at the end, nothing at all. So sometimes for us, if we're going to do this, we should try to ensure quality and be rigorous with the text. This is very, very important. Of course, collecting these materials is also especially important, whether it's in written form or audio and video. Starting yesterday, or you could say starting today, the audio and video materials of His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok. I want to carry out this right here at this very moment, specifically on our own side of Dharma propagation, including the Tibetan editing group and the women's group. I originally wanted the men's group to handle it, but the men's group has a lot on their plate as well. And it's not easy to find volunteers who know Tibetan. In fact, we really can't find any at all, it seems. In the past, some of my university lectures, but in recent years, I haven't given many talks in Tibetan. I haven't had time. Yesterday we discussed that going forward for His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok's materials, whether they are from within the country or abroad, we should collect all the audio and all the video, even if it's just a short verse. A short clip is collected together. If we collect them, then in 10 or 20 years, by that time, they will be very precious. So on our side, including audio and video technology, and then if we work on it gradually, these materials should become very precious in the future. Because after some time passes, including those of us who are a bit older now, once we are gone, it might be impossible to know anymore, and searching these things will be more troublesome. So I think I've mentioned this once before. As you may recall, haven't I, overseas, the disciples of Shurangama Sutra L3, I actually rejoice much in how they preserve materials. They carefully keep all of them worldly or Dharma matters. The teacher's audio, video recordings are preserved well. And their approach, the equipment was good. Our situation was different. We simply didn't have those conditions. So a lot of materials, sometimes missing, sometimes just a little, but almost all of it is blurry and unusable. So no matter what we do, there's nothing we can do about it. But now, whether it's audio or video these days, in our daily lives, if any of you have these materials, let's start from now on. As disciples in the lineage of a master, we still have a responsibility to preserve at least a part of it. This is not private property of our lineage. For us, it should truly be considered as something for the world, as intangible cultural heritage for the world, or as spiritual wealth. It is an extremely precious resource, especially in our daily lives. 10 or 20 years from now, when future generations look, it for them it will hold very profound meaning. So some Western disciples are very objective. They recount small stories about their teachers. He's not exaggerating at all. He's genuinely telling the truth. Like, my teacher flies around every day. My teacher doesn't need to eat. Wow, he's always being described as this or maybe that, you know. They don't praise in that way. Instead, what do? They are objective, direct, and simple, including his smile, his simple way of communicating with others, a small story from his daily interactions, something real. And within that reality, there seems to be something a bit different from ordinary people. Stories like these, sometimes it's necessary to record them just in case. This year, I felt especially deeply that many of the stories from my trips to India have been forgotten. Many of them are just like in Inception. Like the roulette wheel, it spins again. And then I start to remember. Then I look again and in here, where to go in the morning. Perhaps sometimes it's really hard to put this together into words. I keep thinking, relying on causes and conditions, I'm transported back 30 years. That's how it must have been back then. And I remember it especially clearly. Sometimes, truly, human memory like this can be accessed through a certain method. Now, things like simultaneous interpretation and consecutive interpretation, because it was originally invented in Russia, and now, as it happens, there are some scholars or some of their renowned interpreters who rely on just a few very simple symbols, which are notation. Ultimately, they know the entire situation of what was being said at that time. This kind of translation process, it's a very truly strange phenomenon, a phenomenon that we observe. Of course, in the past, our precious guru would often do the same thing when giving lectures. Sometimes while teaching, after talking a bit, about half an hour would pass. Then after finishing, we would start translating. During translation, His Holiness is inside, taking his medicine, eating some things, slowly drinking warm sampa soup, quietly sitting inside the room, while we would be translating by the window of the main assembly hall. After a long time of translation, have you finished the translation? But at that time, sometimes it was necessary to have a simple kind of, for example, if it was something about India, about Atisha, just write a seal and then write an A using notations to represent. In this way, we could remember things for a long time. From 1987 to 1999, I was always doing consecutive interpretation. Consecutive interpreting was instant. For Dharma assemblies, His Holiness taught one day, I interpreted the next. Many of our Dharma friends here have been with me for 20 to 30 years now. Everyone should really remember this clearly. For example, the Sutra of 100 Karmas, much of it, His Holiness taught today. I would take notes. Then the next day we would treat it as a class and teach it. Sometimes I would just interpret it on the spot. Later, after 1999, I went to Singapore and discovered simultaneous interpretation. I was very pleased and happy. Bought equipment, brought home. At that time, His Holiness was at the Amitabha Dharma Assembly, was also very pleased. Until His Holiness passed away, we used this simultaneous interpretation. Simultaneous interpretation is timely. As for other methods, actually, when we first started in the West, most of it was also consecutive interpretation. Different teachers have different styles. Some teachers often translate word by word. For example, when I went to India, discovered Nalanda Monastery, just like that. Some teachers would speak in long stretches. I heard that, for example, the father of Zongsar Rinpoche, Tongse Tenli Norbu, who was son of Dujam Rinpoche, when he taught Dharma in the state of Colorado, USA, sometimes during his teachings, Sangye Khandro mentioned this. He would keep talking for a period of about 40 minutes or so, approximately, in total. Then he asked him to translate. Then, after finishing what he needed to do, he would go out and have some fun for himself, enjoying his time. As he spoke, when he told some jokes, he could still hear from outside. At that time, their Dharma gatherings were held in tents. He would stroll the garden outside, looking at the flowers, At that moment, just as the interpreter, when he told some jokes, disciples laughed. The teacher himself would also be looking at the beautiful flowers while just wandering around for about half an hour, for a long time. Before returning, he would ask, "Have you finished translating?" "Oh, not yet." "Then I'll go out and have some more fun." That's how it was. Their method or approach of translating was also different, especially in comparison to others. But no matter what, I don't even know where I started from just now, joining the lesson now. I also really need a convenient way to officially enter into a more formal and established state. Is that correct, right? What I truly mean to say here, just to be clear, is whether we're translating, whether you are taking detailed notes during lectures to help you remember important points, or even spending time writing entire books to share your knowledge and ideas with others, we should always keep a very rigorous attitude. This is very important, especially when it comes to putting things into writing. This is crucial. Also, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes it may be necessary for us to preserve the teachings of the great masters of previous generations, their stories, their unique experiences, and all of their remarkable and inspiring deeds. In this regard, as disciples of a generation's lineage, we do bear a certain responsibility. For a lineage, for example, a Dharma lineage, whether it can continue or not, this generation is in fact very relevant. For example, if our generation is able to pass down the teachings of our masters, then our generation can be considered successful. For the next generation, it will depend on how much they value these things. Whether it's the masters or the lineage, these aspects must be emphasized, especially when it comes to the more important aspects, such as the transmission of wisdom and thought within the Dharma. This is extremely important. Among us Buddhists, there are some people to the cause of the masters and possibly to architecture and on external undertakings focus on the aspect of inner wisdom. Actually, both of these are necessary. But if we look at it from the perspective of long-term continuity, over time, then writing books, composing commentaries, and what I just mentioned, the project we want to undertake now is whether for the Dharma King, Wish Fulfilling Jewel, or others, including the masters from whom I have received the kindness of the Dharma in the past, all hope to ultimately leave behind their lasting influence, leave their impact. What is my purpose in this? Actually, the masters we have encountered are truly exceptional, just as I mentioned the other day. Thinking of it, the masters I have relied upon, they are wonderful. They have never harmed a sentient being, and their entire lives been dedicated to benefiting sentient beings. If they seemed ill or aging, what kind of situation did you encounter in the manifestation? Various things. They endured without complaint, helping sentient beings, conduct of a great bodhisattva. If simply their words and their thoughts are carefully preserved, it should be beneficial for future generations. This blessing of the lineage, the power of the lineage, if it weren't for this, we might general thoughts, or for ordinary kinds of wisdom, we probably wouldn't really make such sacrifices. Because when we try to do this, in fact, it's not always so smooth and easy. No matter what it is, there are always some obstacles. It requires manpower and funds and effort everywhere. Sometimes we still need to consider many sentient beings with all kinds of different capacities and various abilities. This point is also very important. Oh, what did we just talk about today? Let's start the lecture. All right, when we talk about the Shurangama Sutra, we can take it slowly. It's perfectly fine because even now, every one of us still feels a strong sense of confidence. Confidence matters. So let's continue talking. So, what exactly are we discussing today? Thus have I heard. At one time, the Buddha was staying at Jetavana Monastery in Shravasti at that time, together with a great assembly of 250 bhikshus. We will talk about this passage. So, will we run out of things to talk about later? Sometimes I wonder about that, especially when there's a quiet moment. But honestly, that shouldn't happen. There's always something new to share or discuss, even if it's just small things from our day. Some time ago, last year, right, discussed the Vimalakirti Sutra and others. We taught them with 5 perfections. This time, according to the Chinese tradition, as explained in the commentaries of certain great masters, this particular passage is discussed and analyzed in terms of the 6 accomplishments. 6 accomplishments. Compared to our 5 perfections, is quite similar. Indeed, in many respects. So in this case, actually, here I am carefully following the approach of a master, a respected teacher named Zixuan, taking in every detail, who in his comprehensive and detailed commentary on the Shurangama Sutra, there are 6 achievements in the past I have seen. When explaining Mahayana Mahaparinirvana Sutra, many great masters also mention the 6 accomplishments. For example, in this particular instance right here, if we focus on what is happening at this moment, it's called the accomplishment of faith, faith in confidence. I have heard means the accomplishment of hearing. At one time, accomplishment time, then the Buddha refers to the main figure, the accomplishment of the principle. Location. Here it says Shravasti, means Shravasti, Jetavana Anathapindika in Shravasti. This is called the accomplishment of place. Then a great assembly of bhikshus is called the accomplishment of assembly. Altogether, there are 6 kinds of accomplishments discussed here. In many places here, this is also quite similar to our 5 perfections. First is if the 2 words thus have specifically refer to the accomplishment of faith. Why is it called the accomplishment of faith? Here, thus have. In other words, it is just as it truly was. At that time, the Buddha spoke thus. He spoke truthfully and in reality. At that particular time, his disciples had already heard about it clearly. After hearing it, they recorded it just as it was. After recording it in this way, we can have faith. This record was not absent from the original text, nor was it something the Buddha did not say at the time. It was not like that. What he spoke then was, without any doubt, Vajra speech, which was genuine, reliable, and in complete accordance with reality. Many commentaries also cite this. The Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra, the ocean of the Buddha's teachings, faith is the means of the entry. Wisdom is the means of crossing over. Buddha teachings, vast ocean. If you wish to enter, you should enter with faith, crosswise. Therefore, entering with faith is very important. In fact, for any teaching in Buddhism, it is important to note that faith is very important at the beginning. Without faith, there is no way to enter. Faith is also very important in the middle. Without faith, you can't persevere. And at the end, at the final stage, faith is also quite important. Without faith, you will not ultimately achieve completion in your life. So faith is especially important. Also, this kind of statement is also related to the truly great masters of the lineage. Perhaps nowadays in the West, many people, students think that whatever the teacher says, right or wrong, they believe their ideas are important and argue. Of course, this is somewhat the case, including for those with a rich imagination or those who are creative. This aspect is necessary. However, in Eastern thought, thus have I heard, thus is very important. There were no thuses. When we talk about the Analects now, Confucius' words, truthful and reasonable, might not have been recorded by his disciples, because there were such dialogues between them at the time. And because of this, thus, as a result, these precious and invaluable teachings, which held great significance, were later passed down all the way to the present. Buddhist scriptures saying, what do we gain through faith in our lives? We gain all the teachings the Buddha spoke at that time, which passed down original form. Buddhist scripture, it is especially important to simply have a thus at the beginning. Its reliability, trustworthiness, and so on carry many meanings. This is the very first and most fundamental accomplishment of faith. marking the beginning of a journey in. Then the second is I have heard. As for I have heard, here the I refers to Venerable Ananda at that time, or to Maudgalyayana and Shariputra. I actually heard it this way at that time. So originally this I refers to that. According to some Buddhist teachings, for example, the I of ordinary beings is attached to self. The I of non-Buddhists is a conceptually constructed self. The I of the noble ones is a conventionally designated self. And finally, after attainment, there is the true self. Some divide it into four different categories. But here, it mainly refers to those arhats, those who have attained the dharani of non-forgetting. Thus have I heard, I got it this way at that time. This is just what I heard. Said it was heard this way, it means he has already recounted his recollection, then explained Dhamma's completeness, the entire Dhamma. This is how I heard it at that time. All the teachings within are explained quite clearly and thoroughly. Then the third is the accomplishment of time. Time accomplishment means the time is stated. Because on one hand, in India there was no such habit. The exact time to tell. On the other hand, the concept of time in Buddhism, as mentioned before, is actually such that it only works then effective, past, present, future. In matters politics or in terms of economic timelines, in what year of the Common Era that document might be relevant at that time. But after time passes, it may not necessarily be applicable. But as for Buddhist scriptures, they are needed in the future as well. They were needed in the past, and they are needed now. It has a distinctly time-limited nature. By design, they never become outdated. This is what needs to be conveyed. We talk about the pure time in esoteric teachings, but that is another way of explaining it. Next, the fourth is the Buddha. The Buddha is the awakened one. Here, it refers to the complete fulfillment of the main teacher. Earlier, we discussed the main subject's accomplishment, as mentioned before. Actually, Buddha simply means the awakened one. So, this awakened one, the undeniable truths he so clearly speaks of here, contain no deception, falsehood, or anything of the sort. Therefore, regarding the qualities of the principal deity, we also know from other sources how he eliminated the two obscurations and ultimately realized wisdom. The teachings he established are absolutely true principles. This is also known from other sources. Next, the fifth is a complete fulfillment of the place. Here it refers to the city of Shravasti, the ancient city, the Jetavana monastery, which is the renowned monastery of Prince Jeta. This is the accomplishment of place. The accomplishment of place actually means it is the place where the Buddha expounded the Shurangama Sutra. Moreover, in this place, the Buddha stayed for a total of 25 years. In other places, for example, he did not stay for such a long time. I remember in the Mahaprajnaparamita Shastra, there are also some questions and answers. Someone asked, why exactly is Kapilavastu Buddha's hometown? He didn't stay there for very long. After attaining Buddhahood, he stayed in another country for such a long period. The answer was that in Kapilavastu, the Buddha was free from attachment. Whether he stayed in Kapilavastu or anywhere, it was the same. However, if he had stayed in Kapilavastu, other people besides the Buddha, including the Shakya clan, minds tied to attachment. Some people thought the Buddha is one of us and grew greedy. Others considered the Shakya clan to be their enemies at that time and generated hatred. So there were many issues. Moreover, perhaps even for the Buddha at that time, locals from your hometown are very difficult to guide and transform. So the Buddha, as also stated in the Mahaprajnaparamita Shastra, the Buddha was not because of where he was for entertainment or other reasons, but rather he would see which sentient beings are predestined in order to guide and liberate them. Therefore, Shravasti was where he had his deepest karmic ties, because the king there, as well as many people, had especially strong faith in the Buddha. That is why he stayed there in that particular place for a comparatively speaking long period of time. Of course, we can see this in the records of Faxian and Xuanzang's Great Tang records on the Western regions. According to what is written in these related books, when they went there at that time, these places were all ruins. It really wasn't very obvious at all. But later, after this place was found, some restoration was carried out, and there are some ruins. When His Holiness Digma Phonsok went there, we also visited the related sites and recited the Samantabhadra aspiration prayer there. As for some of the situations here, I have already talked about them elsewhere in previous discussions. Actually, this place should be the place where the Buddha stayed the longest, and it has the greatest, most incredible blessing power. However, I also want to mention here, just briefly, that these holy sites found throughout the vast and culturally diverse regions for a period of time in between, including, say it like this, holy places in India. The holy sites of India are like this. The holy sites of India have now become Buddhist sacred places throughout the country for followers and pilgrims alike. But for a period of time, there was some history. I think perhaps our Dharma friends here know when people mention India, they say it is very extraordinary. And India was remarkable in past. But now, as we can all clearly see, times have changed. And there have been significant changes. For example, when it comes to Buddhism in India, basically there are no Indians who are in practice truly capable of upholding it. Most of the practitioners are primarily from the tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, as well as from other schools, including various lineages and traditions. As for Indians themselves, nowadays, in terms of the Dharma, there are not many people with particularly profound attainments. Look at history. For example, Nagarjuna Bodhisattva, Shantideva Bodhisattva, Bodhisattva Chandrakirti, Master Dignaga, and so on. When we see this, although we have never met them, but when we study their treatises, we truly have great admiration for them. These people were really incredible. But what is it now? Looking at Indians today, of course, Indians in other fields, but in terms of Buddhism, there are not many talented individuals because due to various historical reasons, there are now very few Indians who study Buddhism. However, in other industries, they are impressive. This includes many Western scientists as well. At well-known companies like Boeing in Silicon Valley and in many other places around the world, they really like to hire Indian scientists. I've heard that abroad in the West, in the IT industry, Indian scientists are quite probably the most numerous. There's a place in southern India called Bangalore. They say that place is Silicon Valley of India. There in India, there is an IIT, an Institute of Technology, a prestigious one. It's often said that it's on par with the prestigious MIT in the United States. As equivalent, their intelligence is without a doubt truly extraordinary and remarkable. You could say it like that, really. However, regarding Buddhist beliefs today, there are still some notable differences. They haven't contributed much to Buddhism. Moreover, many of India's holy sites today there was a renowned British archaeologist, and I'd just like to mention him to all of you today as well. His name was Cunningham, by the way. His name was Cunningham. He lived from 1814 to 1893, which means he spent nearly 80 years on this earth. Such a remarkable person. I hope you all, each and every one of you as scholars gathered here today with great promise, should remember his contributions among Buddhists. Not especially emphasized. Many people don't know him, nor have they ever mentioned Cunningham. Why do I say this? Because you could say that he was, in fact, an archaeologist. At that particular time period, when India was under the control of British rule and governance, he was specifically assigned and sent to India for a particular purpose to work there, as was intended. Part of a regiment
He stayed in Sarnath, India briefly. Once he was on the stone, he discovered some ancient relics and inscriptions. Writings went to museum in India and analyzed at Archaeological Institute. They said, this seems to be one of our scripts, but in all of Brahmanism and Hinduism, there are no such records. It probably belongs to Buddhism or something else. But later, when this person returned to England, Xuanzang Great Tang, Records Western, and Faxion's detailed record of Buddhist kingdoms had both been translated into English, and after translation, he compared the information in these two books. He realized that what he had seen at Sarnath, what he found seemed to be related to Buddhism. So he returned to India once more, again. And as we can observe, starting from around 1837, he began to focus on research intensively. He discovered Sarnath, India. At that time, Sarnath, India was being used by the Jains as a pigsty with no relics left at all. Later, over the course of 25 years, he gradually, one was the place where the Buddha was born and the place where the Buddha turned the wheel of Dharma. He found them all. As for his discoveries, at that time there was nothing there, including the Mahabodhi temple and Bodhi Stupa seen today. As for the Bodhi Stupa, it dates back to around the 13th century. Before that, according to some travel notes by Gendun Trompo, before this it had suffered two major destructions. But most importantly, later in the early 13th century, Islamic armies attempted to destroy Mahabodhi temple. The local monks were very afraid, so overnight they buried the Mahabodhi temple underground. In the end, it turned into a small hill, and it gradually became this kind of small, rounded hill underground. The Mahabodhi temple had been lying dormant for over 600 years. Then finally, this person, as I mentioned earlier, it was discovered in 1837, and finally the Mahabodhi temple in 1861. That's when the Mahabodhi temple was discovered. Later, this scholar, relying on various methods, it took him 25 years to finally get India, because at that time, in fact, Xuanzang, Faxian, and this Cunningham, the famous travelers and explorers, these few people have made great contributions for us Buddhists today. Because Indians themselves don't keep historical records, they didn't know what things were like back then. At that time, indeed, we can now say that various religions coexist peacefully. The destruction caused by Islam to Buddhism back then was truly severe historically. Not only did they destroy all the temples at that time, but also on the ruins of these temples, you can't really see anything at all. It's completely dark. Some were even used as pigsties by them or as charnel grounds. There was also a monastery called the Flying Monastery, which you may have heard of as well, actually. Odantapuri Monastery was famous. India, 3 monasteries. One was Nalanda Monastery, one was Vikramashila Monastery, and one was Odantapuri Monastery, also called the Flying Temple. This Flying Temple was also completely destroyed by their invading army at that particular time, leaving nothing behind. Historically, this was traditionally the most, at its peak, at the height of its influence, there were in total 12,000 scholars in that monastery, according to historical records, including in our Tibetan Buddhism, Marpa, Lotsawa, Naropa, all of them were there. And the Venerable Letitia, there is a biography of Marpa Lotsawa. Marpa traveled to India. Once in India, he gently said to Naropa, I have a disciple in Tibet by the name of Vensi, also known as Milarepa. He very much wishes, especially to obtain the practice of body transference phawa. He received a prophecy from the Dakinis, and he wants to receive the phawa practice. Could you teach it to me? At that time, when Naropa heard about Milarepa, he spontaneously recited a verse. 就是说是什么相处我们比浪的呢？刚才你们写了这土巴盖写了第二的拉相子了。What did he mean? In the dark, mysterious land of the north, just like the sun shining brightly on the snow mountains. To the great master Wengsi, I respectfully offer my prostrations. At that time, Naropa paid respectful homage to Milarepa with deep reverence, because these words were just conveyed by Mapalotsawa right at that very moment. Naropa turned to face Tibet with a calm and steady resolve and prostrated toward Tibet to Milarepa. While prostrating, all the mountains, those surrounding the flying monastery at that time, seemed to bow toward Tibet as if in a gesture of respect. So now, whether it's the mountains here or the trees or many other things here, they all lean toward Tibet. There is such a history. Nowadays, some scholars go to observe this. We went there. It was about 11 kilometers from the Nalanda monastery, but because our schedule was extremely tight at the time, we couldn't go. His Holiness also really wanted to visit the Flying Monastery, the ruins of the Flying Monastery, because that was our historic Samye monastery. In fact, part of it was built in Chinese architectural style, and part was modeled after Indian architecture. As for Indian architecture, it mainly follows the style of the Flying Monastery. But in the end, this truly remarkable and mysterious flying monastery destroyed by the Islamic army, and it became a place for burying corpses. I remember at some point in the past, once there was a scholar who wrote a book. He said he visited the ruins of the Flying Monastery. He was especially saddened and saw many places for burying corpses. He looked inside one of the buildings and found a green flag of theirs covering some ancient weathered stone graves. The once magnificent Flying Monastery now has absolutely nothing left at all. That's exactly how he described it. So, what is it that we want to say here? Many of these ancient ruins that still stand in India today. In fact, in the process, you could say that whether Indians or Tibetans, from the 13th century all the way until 1837, before that, it was so. India did not leave behind any. This is what you could call a Buddhist presence, meaning there's a sense or atmosphere here that reflects Buddhist traditions and values. Precisely because of such a long period of time, later on, India mainly no longer has Buddhist traces visible. It was only in the last century, according to some travel notes by Jandun Chompel, there was a person from Sri Lanka, a lay practitioner named Dharmapala. He dedicated his precious life and then started at Bodh Gaya, India, where he founded a monastic community and sought support from the Three Jewels. Of course, this was something that the scholar had just recently mentioned in passing, as you may recall, and it's worth keeping in mind, which, as you might already know, happened after his discovery. Before then, I just saw some Indian, including some pictures of the Mahabodhi Stupa, and you can see that some of them were really quite different. Not quite like what we see today. These are some things, after it was excavated, they were things like this. It is also said that the Jo Buddha statue in Hassa was located on second floor Mahabodhi Stupa. Later, due to significant historical changes at that time, it was eventually taken to China. Later, Princess Wenqing brought it back. Some historical accounts also describe it this way. History in general. Sometimes looking back is necessary because in our world, all kinds of conflicts and discord in relationships, plus some conflicts between different religions. There have been many, if we look at history over time, we really have to reflect deeply on this And in some respects, we must certainly pay close attention to it. Although nowadays is considered a peaceful era, sometimes things are not necessarily as harmonious as in Buddhism. Do no evil, do good. Whether it's the religions around us or the various different ideologies nearby, actually, whether it's our daily lives or Buddhism itself, there are always some potential threats. As a Buddhist, this is also true. This is something we really must, without a doubt, consider. Because changes in history are also a kind of law. Whether it concerns in particular the sacred sites of Buddhism, masters and monks, or even our ancient Buddhist scriptures, all these aspects require some appropriate protective measures. Things, even if we want to protect them, we may not be able to, but everyone should also be aware of this, really. So what I want to talk about today is we really ought to be especially truly grateful to this British scholar. I think as Buddhists should sometimes seriously read about his deeds. If he hadn't done what he did back then, perhaps even just up to now, many of these ruins of India's holy sites, including many of Ashoka's stone pillars, might still not have been discovered. It seems what I just discussed, I might not finish discussing it, the 5 perfections. In my discussion, I specifically focused on and talked about only the 6 main achievements, and I did not mention any other accomplishments beyond those 6. That's the 5th accomplishment. As for the 6th accomplishment, let's leave that for the next lesson. Together with the great assembly of bhikshus, 1,250 people, we'll discuss this tomorrow.
Bandara